Yeah, shall I go ahead now?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. Do you see the screen I'm sharing?
Not yet, sir.
Okay. Mm, even now it's not seen, huh?
No, sir, it's not yet visible.
I don't know what's wrong. 1 minute. Hello? Hello? Yeah, yeah.
Sir, you're on mute.
Oh, now do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So, I was requested to talk about education system in general, but I thought that this Indian knowledge system is now part of the new education policy, and a lot of efforts are being made to include this. There are also, people who believe that this has wide knowledge and in-depth knowledge on several aspects of science. There are also people who don't believe in this, who still believe that the Western education system and what the kind of science and technology we are already exposed to is good enough to take us forward to meet the challenges of the uh, present and the future. But when you keep your mind open and see some logic in what the supporters of this IKS, we may find certain uh, key components which may give us a supportive environment, a learning environment. So um, in this talk, I thought that I would expose you to certain Indian knowledge systems, which particularly with one example, which I'm sure about, because without knowing that, I can't talk about it. But there are also other aspects, key subject matters which you may be able to appreciate. I will just list few of them so that you may explore it further. Some of you who are really interested in research may take some of this as um, research areas and explore further. So when you talk about Indian knowledge system, they are talking about ancient indigenous knowledge system, which are very specific to India. India, if you look at it in a broader perception, there is no difference between South India, North India, Central India. From Himalayas to Kanyakumari, whatever people practiced in the past, we are talking about. Very ancient system which was in vogue in during those days. So it is now formalized, and there is a department to commission for this, and All India Council for Technical Education also is keenly promoting this. And there are also a lot of central universities and state universities which are offering courses in this. But I would say still, it is all these attempts are still in embryonic stage. A lot of research, um, unlearning needs to be done, and unearthing needs to be done to really understand and appreciate what this Indian knowledge system is. So broadly, this is now divided into probably 10. There might be many, but the system now in place advocates only these 10. Um, so number one is this Arthashastra, the Indian system of warfare, which includes warfare, environmental and behavior and ecological economics. This is one of the documented system, but not all ancient Indian knowledge system is documented. Um, it has always been passed on from one master to the disciple. The disciple, when he or she becomes the master, will then pass it on to anyone who he or she thinks is qualified and who is unbiased, who will be able to use this knowledge for the betterment of all. So the next one is the Sanskrit, which they are using the natural language process and other lingua to explore further how this ancient language was responsible for other languages. That is another study area. And then we have this Indian system of numbers, mathematics, and geometry. This is something that we need to be focusing more on, as far as I'm concerned, because we are supposed to be the land of zero. Because we supposed, sorry, yeah, we have this. We introduced the zero to the world, and a lot of mathematicians, including our own Ramanujan, has contributed a lot in this field, and and almost all our ancient monuments, temples strictly followed the geometrical structure, which gave them stability. I would that just touch on that at the end. And we have this chemistry, chemical sciences, rasayana, which is alchemy. uh, in extended version is the alchemy, but the basic is rasayana, which is uh, study on where several chemical components. And then we have ayurveda, which I'm sure is well known now. And here, uh, I would say that we didn't make use of our expertise in this, because several of our own scientific Ayurveda concepts are now owned as patents by Western countries. Um, Even turmeric is not ours now; it's owned by American, or yeah, I think it's American, a firm. And then we have astronomical sciences, the Indian system of positional and astronomical sciences. And then we have terrestrial and material sciences, ecology and atmospheric sciences, and then aesthetics, iconography, and built environment. This is where our sculptures, art, buildings, everything comes under the aesthetics, and architecture. And Indian system of social and ethics, again, a very strong area that can be explored, and classical arts. So these are the areas that the government is now concentrating on, which I'm sure that covers most of the aspects of the Indian system. But for example, the language, we may not be able to concentrate on one particular language, because India is so diverse, and each state has its own language, and even in that language we have so many dialects. uh, mm, Sadly, a lot of tribal languages have uh, dead and gone, maybe because of two reasons. In a civilized, in a so-called civilized urban um, environment, English dominates. Otherwise, across the country, Hindi dominates. So when everybody starts speaking a particular language, their mother tongue takes a setback, and in the long run, the richness of the language is lost. In another, you know, probably 100 years or so, we may be losing a lot of our native languages. So, this being the background of this Indian knowledge system, um, here are some examples where the big names in the educational field, they are now concentrating on um, certain research areas. These are all examples now. impact of Indian classical raga on human cognitive function, a neurophysiological study using EEG. This is done by IIT Kanpur. So they have identified this to be a area of study worthy enough to further how, you know, uh, the classical raga impacts the cognitive function. And these research areas are supported by financial aid by the uh, government government of India. And any university, be it government or private or self-financed, they anybody can, even you and I, if we zero it on a particular um, knowledge area which is worthy of furthering research, we anybody can submit a proposal, and scrutiny will be done, and uh, based on its potential, um, this research money is given to the PI, principal and investigator, and the team. So then another example is Sanskrit word order following the steps of the target language. This is by University of Hyderabad, and the traditional principles of settlement planning in heritage temple sites of Odisha, and formerly known as Kalinga. This is again by IIT Varanasi. Um, this probably will give us, um how in the past we understood the nature and terrain and ecology of that particular area, which I think we have lost. We are now using general science to any area, irrespective of where you are constructing a structure. But that wouldn't that I think is a mistake, because each terrain has its own differences in terms of rainfall, weather, the soil. So I think it should be tailor made than using a thumb rule and apply it to all. And we have yeah, machine translator come language accessor to Sanskrit. Again, this is by University of Hyderabad. And exploring mineral acids in Rasayana Shastra, texts from ancient and medieval India. This IIT Varanasi, revitalizing the indigenous knowledge of sustainable farming practices in Northeast India by integrating conservation research and entrepreneurship. This is by Meghalaya uh, Central University. Um, this, I think, is a major area which has been ignored for so many years, for the simple reason that these indigenous knowledges, knowledge areas are limited to this tribal population. I don't know how many of you know that this Northeast is one area which is not very much exposed to the modern civilization, and exploration is also very minimal there. And there are several tribes. There are rice eating tribes. There are bee eating tribes. There are fish eating tribes. A friend of mine who came from there brought a tribe. I don't think that tribe, when I use the word tribe, don't think a person who is dressed in leaves, and not like the tribals that we see on the screen. These people are, they use normal attire, but they still follow that traditional living style and the belief system. So when this guy came here to do a course in Loyola College, he was staying in my place, and we went to a park to just see around, and he was looking at a bird. A kingfisher was sitting there. He just took a small stone, and his aim was so sharp that with one small stone he was able to bring the bird down. I couldn't even imagine the guy could do that. So it was that's the kind of uh, knowledge and skill these guys possess. Only then I realized that if only this guy was trained in archery, or any of these games that demand Olympic games that demand aim and shoot kind of skill set, I'm sure that they would excel anybody. So uh, again, decoding ancient knowledge of temple tanks on Lord Shiva's Panchaputa Sthala. This is done by IIT Bombay. If you look at this temple tanks, I think they are, according to me, it is more like a natural rainwater harvesting system. And the science has proved us that if you have one temple pond, it will ensure um, that the underwater aquifers are uh, properly uh, filled with water, even during the droughts. Um, uh, Periodically. So that was the reason why temple ponds were constructed, because when you attach religion, people will think twice to pollute it, and they will also try to protect it. So that in that way, conservation of natural resources were ensured. Again, uh, that probably that was the reason why each temple had it was associated with a tree which we call as Talavriksha, and sacred groves were part of temples. Acres of land were allotted to a temple, and where they grew indigenous plant species. Just to conserve them, they are to ensure the biodiversity. And we have analysis of sound spectrum of mantras and their relation with geometrical patterns of yantras. This is again by IIT Kanpur. So going back to this list, these are just examples of research areas that are in vogue now. Um, I thought that I would talk about one particular system, a knowledge system, which uh, I am aware of, and some of you might also be aware of this. And what really happened to this knowledge system, and what we need to do. And if we bring in this, incorporate this knowledge system, Indian knowledge system, in our modern education system, how good it will be is probably some of the questions we will explore now. So, the ancient knowledge system was perfected around 2500 BC by Harappan civilization. These are all, based on the documentation. This knowledge system spread to the whole of Southeast Asia, and from there, due to commerce, business, when people started traveling, it reached the rest of the globe. This is now reintroduced through the national education policy. Um, so, this being the background, we will see how one particular system is affected and why. So, these ways, the science, through archaeology, it is evident that 9,000 years ago, people started settling here. Even during that time, when in India we had settled civilization, in the West, people were still nomads. When we had a proper cooking system in place, they were still feeding on raw meat. So that's the kind of difference we have between the Westerners and us. Um, so we started using technology. We established basic technology. I use this word basic because they are indigenous, very primitive technology, which probably were the foundation of our modern technology. So the DNA research indicates that the distinct South Indian ancestral emerged and reached other countries. There are two theories. One is from this ancient humans. The race started from um, Africa. Another one is from this, Australasia. Uh, Both theories have their own supporting documents. So the one thing that I thought I would discuss here is the rice. Oryza sativa is the botanical name for the rice. Rice has always been an important and component in all Indian rituals. The baby is fed with the mashed food when it starts feeding with the solid food, and during weddings, as in the form of a blessing, we flour this turmeric smeared rice, which I think is a common ritual in almost all wedding forms. And during when people die, and even then some rice is put onto uh, the dead body. Uh, so we can understand that this rice has been a very important component in all our forms of life, right from the birth to the death. So fortunately, in the past, we had, one lakh one the 1,10,000 varieties of rice. This number is huge. Uh, these not all 1 lakh and odd rice were in use in even in the 19th century, but till 1970, most of them were propagated. But sadly, this diversity is lost. So how did this happen? Is a question. It's all because of the Green Revolution. First we tried feeding the mass population with the White Revolution, the milk, and then we have the Green Revolution now. In the past. And now we are looking for Blue Revolution, which we would like to explore the uh, richness of our oceans. We are done with Green Revolution because of the simple reason that we did not understand the native knowledge we had. We were banking on the Western science and the scientists and what they suggested us to do. Even in one of the meetings, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, who is responsible for the Green Revolution, he did uh, make a statement that because of this Green Revolution, there was a negative impact on the native knowledge. So when we had so many varieties of rice, we didn't bother to make use of them, propagate them, and explore the possibilities of feeding the mass. But when the government should also be blamed in a major way, because the government supported uh, the attempts of the scientists, and uh, they reached the farmers. To some extent, it proved to be good because uh, they were able to feed the mass. Uh, what Western countries did and learned by their mistakes, we didn't learn from their mistakes. For example, in 1960s, after the World War, they did not know what to do with their um, um, chemical industries. So they formed committees to identify ways to use or put in best use of their industry, chemical industries in particular. So uh, few committees suggested that these chemical industries can be, used to manufacture fertilizers, weedicide, and pesticide, and uh, the farmers could be advised to make use of this. So that's when the problem started. Till then, people were using the organic way of farming, and when in 60s, a little before that, when the Western countries started using this, unlike Indian agriculture system, the Western system is this little different. They have huge acres of land, and manually it is impossible for them to spray weedicide or apply fertilizers. So they used to employ small aircrafts, machineries to spray pesticides and fertilizers, and within short span of time, the planes used to cover large distance of farmlands and spray them with these chemicals. And many did not know the impact. It was one lady scientist called as Rachel Carson. She was the one who observed nature, and she found that a lot of birds dying around her farmland and in a garden, even in an urban setup. That's when she started exploring this phenomena. Why should these birds die? And she also found that when the songbirds like robin, larks, when they sit on their eggs, the egg was not able to withstand even the mother bird's weight. And then they found that it's because of the thinning of the um, egg shell, because of the chemicals that got into the insects, got into the body of the birds, and that had stayed there in the form of biomagnification and accumulation. It's a process. I'm sure you all would have studied them in their chemistry and chemical engineering classes. Because of that, it had an impact on the egg uh, shells, and she wrote a book which was named as Silent Spring, because spring is a season when these birds call, mate, lay eggs, build nest, lay eggs, and small ones will come out. You'll have a lot of noises around. She said all these bird call songs will no longer be heard if something is not done. That's why she named it as a silent spring. But the government took it seriously, and they banned DDT and a few other chemicals. But we didn't learn from that. We still use these chemicals. And these chemicals, I just wanted to tell this story because how the science, the so-called the modern science, created issues. Though certain positive thing happened, the negative impact was more than the positive. So now we are still using these fertilizers propagated by our own scientists based on the Western science. So this was the beginning of the downfall or the decline of our native knowledge. Out of this 110,000 varieties of rice, we have only 6,000 species of rice now. In across India, there were several individuals who realized this, who went around the country's landscape, collected these rice, and they were varieties, and they formed uh, grain banks, so that in the future they may be revived and propagated, and we will have these species, we can save them from extinction. So why should we uh, concentrate on this native indigenous knowledge system? See, these rice varieties were, are hybrid varieties which humans uh, consciously used them, experimented with them, and what evolution would do in a long period of time. They were able to evolve, get these rice varieties. So, in other words, if I'm from a small area of a hamlet, a village from down south. It may be a very dry, arid area. Rain may not be, uh, a very common experience. So they evolved a rice species which will give them um, some kind of sustenance that would grow well in that particular area, that would suit the soil condition, the weather, and the rain. So each geography had its own rice variety. So, adapted to different types of soil conditions: dry upland, inundated lowland, rain fed medium land, and to climatic vagaries: drought, late rain, uh, early rain, too much rain, excessive cold. And so, from this, we can understand that they used this selective in science. You might have come across this word, natural selection process. So this was done by the humans. Because of this, particularly in South India alone, we had so many varieties of rice. So this expanded the crop genetic diversity. So a feat which evolution could have done in just a few thousand years, which is considerably short span on the evolutionary scale. So we were able to selectively breed these grains. Our farmers developed them. So the multitude of traditional farming techniques that were eco-friendly and sustainable. So now UN and even as we had this conference in Turkey a couple of days back, where all the governments met to see how the world can be sustainable, ensure there is no species extinction, sustainable lifestyle promotion, halting hunger. So now they are talking about it, but in our system we already had these things in place. So these are the some of the varieties of rice which were in vogue across the country. Not many of us would have even heard of these rice varieties. Lohitaka, Sali, Kalama, Karmaka, Panduleka, Sugantaka. So it goes on like that. So, what is apart from growing well in a particular geography, uh, there are certain examples which we may be able to relate. Sigapu Kurivikar is Kar Arisi. Yes, one is very native to our country. I mean, Tamil Nadu, and from here it reached the other parts of the country. And not only from our country, it reached Cambodia and a few other countries of Southeast Asia also. So Sigappuka Kuruvikar is was a name used here, but when it went to Thailand, Vietnam, they used their own native word to call this. But um, this is supposed to this particular variety is supposed to be a resistant to uh, brown plant hopper and caseworm. So not only they developed varieties which was doing well in the climatic and soil conditions, but they were also able to evolve what now people, scientists are trying to do through GMOs, genetically modified organisms, which is not the way to do, because we are playing a god like role here. uh, GMOs are, taking genes of frog and then fixing it with um, maybe a human to get a human resistant to a particular disease. But in the long run, we don't know how this mutation will, what it will result in. Um, but here, this was a natural process. Through this natural process, they were able to evolve a variety which was even pest resistant. So that is the speciality of this. That is the reason why we need to study this now, to see that how, what made this now with the kind of modern engineering technology we have now. We will be able to identify the qualities of these varieties, and then probably use that as a base to uh, promote this kind of species. And going back to what this green revolution did, we have this IR8, in Tamil we call as IR8. It's a very, this is supposed to be one of the most famous variety, which was IR because of this International Rice Research Institute. IRRI was the research institute. I think it was based in Philippines, where a lot of research was happening on promoting hybrid varieties of rice, and then with that, uh, to take it uh, to the farmers um, to feed the big population, growing people population. So this, when was taken to people, uh, they also found that they're doing well. The yield was very good. So one variety um, was supported and propagated throughout the country. So this eroded the genetic diversity. Um, what we called as high yielding varieties, HYVS. So this was, was the most important aspect why this our native, we were forced to lose our native uh, species of rice. Like when people from students from India go abroad and stay, we call it as brain drain. Similarly, uh, conservationists, naturalists called this phenomena as grain drain, GRAN, grain drain. because started losing our native species of grains. Um, I'm sure some of you might be aware of few names like uh, Mr. Um, Nammalwar, a person who strongly uh, opposed this scientific approach, and he was one of a pioneer who went across the country to collect this native grain. Um so this was the result, the advent of green revolution, erosion of genetic diversity, the aggressive advertisement and marketing of modern high yielding varieties promoted national and international agencies have since 1960s systematically pushed back most of the folk crop varieties to extinction. We lost many. We have few now. So this is the result now. Uh, so declining the agriculture income and this monoculture, as I said little earlier, one variety was supported, promoted, which automatically, when we say monoculture, we are not promoting, the diversity there, which is the most important aspect of nature. And this led to the uncertainty in the market. The gene pool of the Indian rice plant was endangered. We cannot estimate the loss, change in the soil structure because of our use of pesticide, overuse of chemical fertilizers, changing in the water table due to withdrawal of groundwater. And I was told by people who are a specialist in this field that this IRIT is a very short variety, but when we explore the varieties what we had, they were very huge. A tall man, if he gets into a rice field, you won't be able to see the person. So that's the kind of varieties we had, and though not all, there were some varieties which grew that tall. So now we have lost 95 percentage of our you know native species. This is one of the Spirit of Earth is one such organization's NGO which is working on it. Why did we lose that? Because we don't document anything in India. So most of the world rice strains are gone. The expert knowledge about them too. So this is one of the reason. Documentation has not been our forte. That has not been our strength. This is where the Westerners excelled us. They documented everything. That's how they approached the science. For us, science was not different from our daily way of life. It was an integral part of our life. Philosophy or psychology, or even psychology is a Western concept. We had only philosophy, which did talk about the psychology. So just because of our lifestyle, we did not separate these things. There was no need for us to document also, because we don't document the way in which we live. But we didn't foresee how this knowledge system will be eroded. So as a result, we not only lost our rice, but also certain recipes involved with them. You know, so going back to this organization, they are now creating this edible archives. They are retracing these grains and also identifying these recipes, trying to bring back them. So they are trying to just giving one example to dispel the myth that the rice, even the doctors now say that because of your diabetes you don't take rice, you go for wheat or millets. This, many say that it's a myth. because there are two varieties from Tamil Nadu where rice is the staple. One is Katuyanam and the Siraga Samba. The former is with the low glycemic index, which makes it ideal for diabetes. And the later is rich in fiber and rich in selenium to fight colon and intestinal cancer. So these two varieties, fortunately, are still with us. And we have this Mapalai Samba, which again is rich in fiber, increases hemoglobin, stops ulcer and diabetes. And this is Karupu Kavuni. Kavuni. Uh, According to the literature, that's one source where we learn these things through literature, particularly Tamil literature. This it's learned that this particular rice variety is used by it's from the Chola period, and it was preferred and used by the kings, not by others. So um, this is supposed to work against cancer and increase the insulin production in humans. And this is, as I said little earlier, Katu Vanam, and I think this this is this is the one used by Chola and not this one. And this is Pungar Kaikuttal. Kaikuttal means no, they don't use a machine. It's been there right from those days. Um it is supposed to strengthen the hip bones, particularly for women, and it facilitates the natural childbirth. So these are just examples of uh, one example that I thought that we will be able to relate, uh, and I know them for sure that because uh, several of people who are known to me are in this field trying to get these varieties back and have them as a seed bank. So if we are able to use our biotechnology and study the aspects of these grains, we will be able to get much more than what we know. So that's one reason why we need to retrace the Indian knowledge system. So another example, what I would probably take is this last week I took this image. This is off Porshwakam. There is a old building, which was, you see the kind of bad state this building is. Particularly, you can see from the structures, it's from the British era. This was supposed to be the first uh, building where the first labor union was started. I don't know how many of you know Mr. Tiruvi Kalyana Sundaranar. He was a, uh, uh, Tamil writer, poet, and he was supposed to have laid the foundation stone for this. And the labor union was functioning here. So the reason why I thought we need to know this is to particularly people from civil engineering can understand, study how our temples were built, and use this knowledge to restore buildings like this. So math in architecture is one. These images I'm sure are available on the net. So I just took these images from uh, from the net, and so these are Kajora, uh, and we have Chaminar, where they have taken now. See, these are all ancient buildings, monuments, and temples, and now the modern science tells us that these structures have very uh, 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 classified, they have used strong mathematics aspects, geometry in these architectural styles. Probably because of this, they were able to withstand, you know, so many years of erosion or atmospheric pollution and all weather calamities. The same thing can be applied to Konark, the Sun Temple. Say if you go into this, it says that it has eight major spokes that divide 24 hours and that into eight equal parts, which means that the time between two major spokes are 3 hours. So that's the kind of math that is given here. So probably you can explore more on this. And say for example, these are all until the Nat Geo came and they studied how this 180 ton of single granite stone was taken on top to the Tanjavur Brihadeshwar temple. People did not know how it was taken. How did people find such a single piece in a terrain devoid of mountains? So this huge 180 ton should have been transported from one area to another. How they transported it, considering the fact that they had only carts and horses, and how did they move the single piece to the top of the temple tower? So Nat Geo gives answers for these things. So we were not able to explore this until a guy from a foreign country took interest in our structures and explored them. So in Suchindram, Tamil Nadu, one could find that if you were to insert a long piece of thin iron rod in one ear of Hanuman idea, it will come out of the other side. This is just not one example. There are I have personally seen. Uh, I don't remember the temple. One is in um, Tirunelveli, where this a piece of small, not even an iron, a small piece of twig. You insert it in one ear, it will come through the other one. On a Dwarabalaka, the two big statues, which is normally seen in when you uh, uh, go into a temple, So that only shows that they were able to make a hole through a solid piece of stone, granite, uh, with some kind of a technology, some kind of an equipment, which only very, the 21st century, the Westerners, 20th century, probably they were able to use the drilling machine in such a minute way. Now we have laser. In those days, I'm not sure whether we had any of these things. In many Shiva temples, one would find a small hole drilled behind the idol of the sanctum through which air blows. One can see this among many temples in Kalahasti. So now in Mahabalipuram, Tamil Nadu, one can see the micro drilling technology at work. Perfect circle has been made. You can Google and see also. And there is a uh, YouTube available where beautiful, very perfect circular. Uh, 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 they have drilled it in a very solid granite, and it's more like a well. It's almost 6 feet deep. So these are all available with us now, and so these two are just examples. One, I used the architecture because I'm interested in that, and the native grains. Um, we need to ensure that we bring in these concepts in our system, and see that we uh, explore them, understand them, and ensure we take it to the future. So I'm also sure that whether you are from computer science or civil engineering or chemical engineering or biotechnology, you can identify a particular knowledge sphere in our system and identify it, probably consider the aspects of furthering the research in that, and then take it forward. Uh, Let me stop here, and I thank you for the opportunity given. If there are any questions, I would love to take it, or else it's fine. Thank you.
Students, if you have any questions, any queries, you can ask, sir. So if there are no questions, I thank sir. I really thank you, sir, for your wonderful, inspiring speech and your experience to share with the students for your valuable time also. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Pleasure.
you for thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for the department coordinators, IAC coordinators. Thank you, Manishamala madam. Thank you, students, for taking part in this webinar. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.